One of the biggest misunderstandings in the Star Wars fandom about the Yuuzhan Vong War is the belief that it was just another galactic conflict resolved by superior firepower. This simplification doesn't just misrepresent the scope of the war, it also erases the profound moral and philosophical complexities that define the New Jedi Order series. When fans say the war was just won by blowing stuff up, they ignore the nearly 20-book saga that chronicled not only the military campaigns, but also the ethical, spiritual, and cultural transformations that took place across the Star Wars galaxy. The series was not just a continuation of the Rebellion versus the Empire formula. Instead, it redefined the stakes of galactic conflict and what it meant to be a Jedi. So who were the Yuuzhan Vong? They were a species from outside the known galaxy who launched a massive invasion in the novel Vector Prime by R.A. Salvatore. They were entirely alien, not just in biology, but in worldview. They abhorred technology as we know it, and instead relied on biotechnology, living ships, weapons, and even clothing. And their culture was deeply rooted in pain, sacrifice, and religious zealotry, and they worshipped a pantheon of gods that demanded suffering and conquest for the Yuuzhan Vong. This led to a fan misinterpretation that the Yuuzhan Vong were simply space orcs, a faceless horde to be wiped out. But as the series progressed, particularly in the novels like Traitor by Matthew Stover and The Unifying Force by James Luceno, it became clear that the Yuuzhan Vong were victims as much as they were villains. Their history was one of exile, of being cast out from their original galaxy by their own gods and creators. This exile shaped their culture and justified, in their eyes, the brutal conquest of the galaxy. Understanding the Yuuzhan Vong requires empathy and context within the history of the galaxy in Star Wars. Their reverence for pain wasn't sadism, it was spiritual. Their hatred for mechanical technology wasn't ignorance, it was a religious doctrine. These are the nuances that are often missed in shallow retellings of the Yuuzhan Vong War that you might find on social media. One of the most important points of divergence from typical Star Wars storytelling is the Jedi response in the New Jedi Order novel series. The New Republic's military, along with certain factions like the Imperial Remnant, did often seek total military solutions, but the Jedi, led by Luke Skywalker, resisted the call for extermination time and time again. In the novel Destiny's Way by Walter John Williams, we see Luke wrestling with the temptation to go full military commander when presented with Alpha Red, a bioweapon that could have wiped the Yuuzhan Vong out. But he resisted, arguing that the Jedi were not warriors of annihilation. Instead, the Jedi sought understanding, healing, and ultimately, peace. This culminates in the work done by characters like Jacen Solo and Vergere, whose journeys in Traitor are critical to understanding the Jedi philosophy that would take place later in the war. Compare this to someone like Darth Vader. Had he been alive during the invasion, his approach would have likely been immediate and brutal eradication, a total annihilation without hesitation or consideration for cultural nuance. The Sith view of control and power would have dictated a scorched earth strategy, but Luke's Jedi took a different path. They were patient, they listened, and they sought another way. Jacen Solo eventually rejected both blind adherence to the old Jedi philosophies and the nihilism of the Yuuzhan Vong. Instead, he embraced a new understanding of the Force, one that includes the Yuuzhan Vong, who were mysteriously absent from the Force for much of the series. The discovery isn't just metaphysical, it's political, and it changed the Jedi approach from one of destruction and defense to one of reconciliation as well. So it's a mistake to see the war as ending in simple military victories. Yes, there were massive battles throughout the novels. Ebac 9, Coruscant, Mon Calamari, Bastion, but the real end of the war came from diplomacy, it came from compassion, and it came from sacrifice. In The Unifying Force, the final novel of the series, Zonama Sekat, a living planet, becomes a central character. It represents an alternative to war. It represents a place where the Yuuzhan Vong could be rehabilitated and could rediscover a more peaceful existence without the need for conquest, without the need for their species to be exterminated to live within the galaxy. And in the end, the Yuuzhan Vong weren't exterminated. They were offered a chance to live on Zonama Sikot and rebuild their society away from conquest. The decision wasn't easy. It was controversial both in-universe and among some fans. But it was the culmination of everything the New Jedi Order series happened to be building, and everything that the New Jedi Order would be believing moving forward. So in the end, the war was not won because the New Republic had bigger guns, but because they managed to hold on to their values when it mattered most. Jedi, like Luke, Jason, Anakin Solo, and even Vergere, pushed for a deeper, more painful path: understanding. Vergere was one of the most controversial and interesting characters in the New Jedi Order series. Her teachings in the novel Traitor challenge everything we thought we knew about the Force. She tells Jason, "Everything I tell you is a lie," forcing him to unlearn what he believed about the light and dark sides of the Force, about control, and about freedom. And throughout the years, many fans misunderstood Vergere as a Sith in disguise, or a manipulative force. But her true role is far more nuanced. She represents a third path, one that sees the Force not as a tool to be wielded in battle as a cudgel, but as a living presence that includes even the Yuuzhan Vong. Through her teachings, Jason realizes that peace cannot come from dominance, but instead from empathy. This philosophical core is what sets the New Jedi Order series apart, and why it deserves a more careful rereading. The war against the Yuuzhan Vong wasn't just physical, it was spiritual, and it demanded more from our heroes than simple combat prowess, or being able to blow up another world ship. And because of that, the New Jedi Order chronicles a profound transformation in the philosophy of the New Jedi Order. The Jedi who emerged from the Eujan Vong War were not the same as those who went in. Luke Skywalker, often criticized by some people in the fandom for his hesitations, actually exemplified a maturing Jedi Order, one that weighed the cost of war against the deeper call of the Force. This era saw Jedi acting as diplomats, mediators, and also healers. Characters like Tenel Ka, Silgal, and Tahiri Vela each took on unique roles that defied the warrior stereotype. Their efforts helped forge the path to peace in ways that couldn't be achieved through their lightsabers. And while the Yuuzhan Vong War did shake the Star Wars galaxy to its foundations, it also provided the blueprint for a more unified future. The Galactic Alliance was born out of necessity, but it endured because its foundation was not just built on strength, like, say, the Galactic Empire, but on shared trauma between systems and a shared effort to defend the people within the galaxy. Books like The Final Prophecy by Greg Keyes and The Unifying Force show us how even Yuuzhan Vong defectors like Nen Yim and Harar contributed to peace. The line between ally and enemy blurred, and from that uncertainty came growth within the Galactic Alliance. So why do misunderstandings of the Yuuzhan Vong War persist, even into the present day? Partly, it's because the Star Wars Expanded Universe, now Legends, is so vast that some fans haven't read the entire New Jedi Order series, which is understandable. It's 19 novels long, and comes after many other things in the Expanded Universe. But part of it is also because it challenges the traditional Star Wars dichotomy of good versus evil in a way that can't be explained away on a lore channel on YouTube. And because of that, remains also out of reach of a lot of Star Wars fans. And I say that because the Yuuzhan Vong War in the New Jedi Order series is messy. There are no easy answers. Some heroes make terrible mistakes, and some villains from other works in the Expanded Universe show humanity. And the ultimate resolution doesn't come from a final duel or a Death Star explosion, but from moral conviction and cultural understanding. The Unifying Force, by James Luceno, closes with the galaxy not triumphant, but healing. And that's the message. Peace is harder than war. Understanding is harder than hate. But that's the path that the Jedi and the galaxy in the new Jedi Order series chose. And it's what makes the Yuuzhan Vong War one of the most ambitious, thoughtful, and misunderstood arcs in all of Star Wars.